Hello, good evening, guys. I hope we are all well. Um, it's been a while since we had a space due to some happenings in our life. We had to just go dark a bit and not and recover from some of the things that have happened. But we are back with our regular spaces, and today we are talking about what is happening in the gig economy and in the platform space in the country. This conversation has been occasioned by the latest report by Fairway Ghana, their ratings for the year 2020, where they analyzed about 10 platforms using a scoring system to understand how the platforms are playing in the space in Ghana and how basically users on the platform, that is drivers largely, service providers, are treated. So this is why today's conversation is happening. I know a lot of you have been asking me, why did Austin and I stop our regular conversations after we had those explosive conversations about SIM card registration? Well, something happened, so we had to go a bit silent and recover from all these things. So that's why we've not been having the conversations. So you are all welcome to this conversation. Other people are joining, and I know that as usual, we are going to get the numbers to have an all-encompassing conversation. So let me say a big welcome to my friend, my brother, my partner in crime, Austin. Austin, it's been ages. How are you?
Fine, Kojo, and good evening to everyone who's joined us. I would also like to reiterate what you just said about we starting on an explosive note, and we had to go on a hiatus due to certain circumstances that affected every one of us. But we are happy to be back to be discussing issues related to the Ghanaian youth, issues related to things that would affect our lives. So, like they say, I don't know if it's a cliche, but it's better late than never. We are back and moving on. We've been having discussions on the salient things that are happening in our everyday lives and how we will all learn from these things to better our lives. So, thank you to everyone who has joined us in this space. And we are coming back on a very, very important issue that I think many a Ghanaian youth would want to have a bite of. So thank you to everybody and welcome back as well, Kojo.
Okay, so I don't know those of us listening, how many of us use the various platforms actively? For me, these days, I use the ride-hailing apps quite a lot. When I drive from my home to town, I park my car and I take the ride-hailing apps because when I do the maths, it's still cheaper than driving myself around the city. When somebody is driving me, I get to do extra work, which gives me makes me more productive. And when I calculate, in fact, the last time I bought fuel, I checked my range on my gauge, and it said the fuel could take me for 180 kilometers. When I did the maths, I was doing 3 Ghana cedis per kilometer. Right now, from my house to my office is about 25 kilometers, so 3 times 25. My math's no good, so let me get a calculator. Or those of you who know maths, you can let me get a calculator to do this. Now, 3 times 25 is 75 cedis. If I was taking an Uber, it would have cost me maximum 40 cedis. So usually sometimes when I do those maths, I feel that the platforms sometimes are cheaper. But we need to dig deeper into some of these things. We have Uber, we have Yango, we have Bolt, we have Bolt Food, we have Glovo, we have the Black Ride, we have InDriver, we have Swift Wheels, we have Phoenix. And you have a lot of people who depend on these platforms for a living. Aside their staff at the country offices, so their country directors and their marketing people and all these, there are people who sign up onto these platforms as drivers, as delivery guys, as service providers, whose lives also are important. Now, last year, Fair Work Ghana put out a report on how these platforms are doing with respect to creating a fair environment and creating value for all. This year, they've come up with another report. And when I was going through the report, it really hit me that, look, this is something that we need to discuss. I try to monitor mainstream radio, and I realized that the guys at Fair Work Ghana had been to CT, they've been to other platforms to talk about these things. But I also felt that the conversation must happen on a platform. We're having conversations about platforms, and there's no better space than to have that conversation on a platform, which is Twitter. That's why this evening, Austin and I are having this particular conversation. We'll be talking to one of the lead researchers at Fair Work Ghana. But most importantly, this evening, I want to hear from people on this space who are in the platform economy. If you're an Uber driver, I'd like to hear from you. If you're an Uber user, I'd like to hear from you. If you are a car owner who gives out vehicles on Work and Pay, I'd like to hear from you as well. Because this week when I was tweeting some of the, results from the Fair Work reports, some people basically were disputing some of the findings. For example, the findings as to the revenue these drivers make, the findings as to the number of people on these platforms. All these were in dispute, and so I want us to have an open conversation where we all get to say whatever is on our hearts and on our minds, and also ask for whatever should be done to correct this particular situation. Because whether we like it or not, as long as we want to move, as long as we need certain services done for us to thrive, these platforms will be important in our lives, and we cannot forgo these platforms. So once again, you are all welcome. I think this is the second intro for our conversation. Austin is my co-host, and as usual, you know that he's the most prolific Twitter space moderator and co-host in the country. So we'll be handling a lot of the talk and a lot of the direction for this conversation, and I'll also be helping out with some of the information that I have based on my conversations with people around this particular topic. So we'll have Austin, and then we also have Joseph Budu. Joseph works with the Fair Work team, so we'll give Joseph also a chance. We'll actually interview him for him to tell us about the report. So Austin, I'm handing over to you. I don't know if you have some questions you want to ask me, or I should just go through run us through the report before we interview Joseph, and then have an open forum for everybody to have their say.
Okay, thank you very much, Kojo. I think that you should go through the report because we have been using the phrase Fair Work Ghana. Fair Ghana, and people might be wondering who they are, but it's best that when Joseph joins us, we ask him or put those questions to him. What necessitated this particular one that they did, and some of the responses that we've had over the week over. It's caused a lot of uproar and brouhaha. People don't believe some of the things you've tweeted. So we would ask Joseph, because he are the lead researchers, what went into that and everything. But one of the key things I would be looking out for is the impact, the increase in fuel and all that has had on these ride-hailing apps, and the impact it has had on the Ghanaian citizen. Because, to be frank, we keep complaining about people who have cars and how much fuel they are buying, but I've also spoken to a couple of drivers in this ride-hailing app, and business has gone down drastically, because we cannot afford to be paying that much for it. So we will look at the chain, and the impact it is having along the chain and all that. But it's best now you give us the report, some of the salient parts in that report. Then when they join us, we would ask them some of these questions. But when you are done with the report, I would also have some questions on the report that I would want to ask you so that you give us the data and all that.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph is actually has joined us, so I've enabled him as a speaker. So maybe we can both interview him for him to run us through the report.
Yeah, I think that would be best if he would do that. Then
once that is done, we'll have a general conversation. So, Joseph, welcome to the conversation. This is our Twitter space. It has no name. It's an unbranded Twitter space. We have these conversations on the regular. And today, your report has attracted us. It's gotten us to have this particular conversation. It's actually bringing us back into the space economy. First of all, tell us who is Fairwork and what do you do?
Thank you very much, Kojo, for using our report as a reviver. And hello, Austin, and all the listeners. So, Fairwork is a project that has a team of researchers across 20 countries. Our head office, our central office, is in the University of Oxford in the UK. And the project's branch is in Ghana, housed at the University of Ghana, and then Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, where I am. So we are a team of researchers interested in the digital economy generally, but in terms of the Fairwork project, we are doing research into the working conditions of people who work on digital labor platforms. We want to find out whether these workers we have 5 principles that we use to check this. We are checking whether, first of all, the workers are earning fair pay. Fair pay is where when the workers deduct all their expenses from their revenue, they are at least earning a minimum wage or at best a living wage. Then we check for fair conditions. We are asking the platforms and their workers whether there are any measures put in place by the platforms to mitigate the risks that they face on the job. Then we check for fair representation. We're asking whether the platforms respect the rights of the workers to form worker unions and whether they respect collective bargaining. Our 4th principle is fair management. We are finding out whether these platforms have due process for resolving grievances they may have with the workers and vice versa, such as if you have maybe a worker refuses a trip. If a worker refuses a trip, what is the sanction? Is it just outright dismissal or blocking from the platform, or there is some dialogue? There is a due process that will follow. And our last principle is fair contracts. We have seen that some of these platforms sign or give contracts to workers, and such contracts are outside the jurisdiction of Ghana. For instance, we had one platform whose contract was under Spanish law. So these are 5 principles that we score. We use to generate a league table of the platforms.
So the principles, if I can go over, fair pay, which means that a worker working on any of these platforms must get at least the minimum wage or the living wage. It should be fair. Now, fair condition means that the platforms must, like we all do in our various professions, the platform must give these workers fair conditions of service. So risk must be mitigated and safety net provisions must be put in place, right?
Yes.
Now, the 3rd condition is fair contracts, that the platforms must provide contracts or evidence to show that their contracts, their terms and conditions are understood by the drivers or the workers on the platform. They are also subject to Ghanaian law. and they seek the interest of the people they work with, not just the interest of the platform.
Yes.
Right. And then the fourth one is fair management.
Yes.
That there's due process followed in running these platforms, such that, for the want of a better word, it's not an autocratic system where they do as they please, but they do as is in the interest of all parties involved.
Yeah.
Right. And then fair representation is where workers, just like any other place, we have the Ghana Medical Association, Ghana Bar Association, Teachers Association. Workers can also form their own groups and have their representatives help them in pushing their agenda and in pushing for equity and fairness. Have I summed it up right?
Fantastic. Yes.
Okay, so last year when your report came, I remember you did your research on just about 5 of the platforms, but this year you've done 10 platforms. Can you take us through those platforms that were covered by this year's research?
Okay. So last year we did 10, and this year we've also done 10.
Okay, last year you did 10. All right.
Yes. But not all the platforms we got last year were available this year, because some have folded, some are not active, so they don't have workers for us to interview. So this year we did a desk research to find out the active platforms. We wrote to them to inform them that this year we are going to do scoring, and upon further checks, some platforms dropped out. A platform like EasyBank, which we scored last year, was not active this year, so we had to drop. iFetch also had to drop. So the platforms that were left this year were Glovo, the Black Ride, Bolt, Bolt Food, Phoenix. Phoenix is a new one that came in this year. The InDriver is also new. Then Jumia Food, Swift Wheels, Uber, and then Yango. These were the 10 platforms we scored this year.
Now, how many of these platforms are locally owned, and how many are foreign owned? Do we know?
Yeah, so we know of the Black Ride, which is locally owned. The rest are all foreign owned.
My other question is that the platforms that were not assessed this year, the platforms that have shut shop, do we know why they are inactive now?
Honestly, the contacts we have even quit the job, so they would rather not answer and give any responses to that question, to find out whether they are even active or not active and why they are not active. Our contact in EasyBank, for instance, has moved on, and he doesn't want to say anything about the platform. But we can estimate that their business model was not that profitable when it comes to, because they are competing with giants like Bolt Food and Jumia Food, and Glovo especially. I think when Glovo came in, they are offering certain discounts and pushing the market to attract most of the riders to themselves, and it makes it difficult to compete in such a space. So it looks like they're better off food. And something similar is happening to the Black Ride. Fortunately, they are taking a worker-centric approach, so that they will genuinely attract the workers to themselves, other than just pushing discounts and bonuses.
So, from what you are saying, it looks as though the locally founded platforms are not strong enough, and they are suffering in the space. And something must be done if we need more local participation in this particular economy, right?
Exactly. See Glovo and Uber. Look at the countries in which they are and the kind of funding they have. They can easily run a 1 week promo to give discounts or bonuses to drivers, that if you if you run this number of hours or this number of trips, we will give you a certain amount. It attracts the drivers to drive on their with the app. So if there are more drivers or workers coming onto that platform, if a rider picks the phone to book for a trip, they will have drivers, and that will also attract the more riders to join because they know that they will get a vehicle or they will get service when they join this platform. If you take the black ride, the drivers don't want to ride on it because they cannot get so many bonuses. Because we don't have many cars, customers will not even download the black ride to book a trip because if you're in Accra and you are booking a ride and your nearest vehicle is 1 hour away, you will be discouraged and you will check the app that has a closer.
Okay. Now let's go to your findings. And I'll run through them quickly, and then you can give us your comments.
Something I would want to ask Joe. Joe, is there a reason we're talking about Ghanaian participation? Shazi, the one owned by Shatta Wale and launched about 2 years ago, did not feature.
Yes. So we contacted Shazi at the time where you know that we started this year scoring way back in February. As at February, when we contacted Shazi, we didn't get a response, and on the market, the taxis that claim to be driving or to be working for Shazi are honestly not working for Shazi. They are so branded, but they are working on Uber and Bolt. So you don't have them running the Shazi app, even though they may be claiming they have just branded. That is something on the ground as well.
But is that not normal with a couple of the companies? Because drivers to maximize their earnings would be running on, let's say, 2 to 3 apps, and that is enabled by your phone. So is it peculiar? And with these findings, does that mean that anything you get is exclusive to a particular brand?
Yes, we would rather have exclusive workers so that we can, if somebody is working on platform A totally or fully for 12 hours, the person can tell us or give us more information which has higher fidelity than somebody who keeps switching. We've met drivers, workers like that. They have 4 apps and they keep switching, even 4 different phones. Some have it on the same phone. They keep switching on and off as to where. So some are bonus hunters. They wait for the app or the platform that has bonus and then run with it for that week. That one we will not be able to understand, for instance, the fair pay. When we do the calculations, it will be difficult for us to know whether the bonus free earnings really cover or help you to achieve your the minimum wage or even the living wage. Okay. So it makes it it makes it a bit.
Lastly, so are you saying that during your research, if 1,000 drivers are interviewed exclusive to a particular brand, it would be difficult getting at least 1% of that 1,000 being exclusive to Shatta Wale's Shazi?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. You can continue.
As I said, at the time we were doing the interviews, which covered over 4 months, from February up to May, we didn't have Shazi. So maybe it is now that they have picked up. But at that time, in Accra, Kumasi, and Takrady, where our interviews covered, they were not available. And I think one thing that also made us drop Shazi is that they have a different business model. They want drivers to pay for a service fee. So you pay to join the platform. Maybe you make a deposit of maybe 200 Ghana cedis. So this week you are driving worth 200 Ghana cedis, and then all the earnings that you make go into your pocket. This is a bit different from the traditional model where you drive or you work on the platform, and the platform takes their service fee, and the rest.
Okay. So now let me go through the scores and your findings. I'll start from the bottom. On fair representation, your report says 1 out of 10 platforms assures freedom of association and ensures the expression of collective worker voice. And 1 out of 10 platforms ensure democratic governance. So out of the 10 platforms that you assessed, only 1 out of the 10 assures freedom of association. So does that mean that the others do not allow their drivers or their riders to form associations for collective bargaining and negotiations and all that?
Yeah, right. They don't. So if you take the 8 platforms, that's called 0. All those ones don't recognize worker associations and worker unions. Worker unions have picketed at both before, and they didn't even listen to the leadership. They didn't listen to any of the representatives, and all those drivers that picketed at the office were blocked from working on that platform. And when worker unions come to them, they tell them to come individually as individual contractors and workers. They don't recognize the unions. The Black Pride is the one platform that in May this year signed a memorandum of understanding with all recognizable available worker unions. And even before the signing, the unions had approached them to say that these are some of the challenges that we face working on platforms in general. We would like you to address them. For instance, we don't know where a rider is going. We don't know a rider's destination until the rider sits in the car, and sometimes they have to ask. So we would like to know where we are going before we take the trip. And the Black Pride has included this feature in their app. So you can choose to take a trip or not. And if you choose to cancel a trip, you are not penalized like on the other platforms. Yeah.
Oh, so you mean that on the other platforms, when I request a trip, the driver would not know where I'm going to unless he begins the trip?
Yes.
Is that the case generally?
Yes. If you bear with me, sometimes the driver will call to ask you, where are you going?
Yes.
He'll ask you, where are you and where are you going? If the destination is favorable, then the person was okay, I'm coming to pick you. If it is not, sometimes you ask you to even cancel the trip. Because
I find it very annoying when the drivers call me to ask me where I'm going. I always tell them, but I pinned my destination, so check. And okay, so now I understand. So some of the platforms don't give the drivers the chance to know the destination to decide whether they will go or not.
They don't. Some even don't know how much the fare. Some don't know that the customer has a bonus. You only get to know when the trip ends.
But when there is a bonus, is it paid for by the platform or is paid for by the driver?
It's supposed to be the platform supposedly paying the fare for the rider. So if the rider was supposed to pay 10 cedis for a trip and he has 5 cedis bonus, so he's left 5 cedis. That 5 cedis difference should be paid by the platform to the driver.
So that's fair. So why is it that the drivers don't like it when people ride with bonuses and even cards?
Okay, so they don't like it because oftentimes they are owing. You see, when at the end of the week, they have to go and pay the service charge, the commission for the platforms to the platforms. If they take card trips, the money will be online. It will easily be with the platform. If they take cash trips, the cash will be with the driver. Okay. And if you share one of our calculations where we see that the driver is making losses. If the driver takes more card trips, it means that he doesn't have cash to go and buy, let's say, fuel. If he has, that's why they prefer cash trips, so that they will have cash on hand to refuel their tanks. So if a rider has discount, it means that the cash that you would have received after the trip is reduced, and the electronic money part will go to the platform. Now, this is where if the driver was owing previously in the previous cycle because he had taken more cash trips and hasn't gone to pay his service charge to the platform, he will be owing. So as soon as if there's a bonus, the platform will deduct their commission from the bonuses that should have been paid to the driver.
I get it. So in the type of economy that we find ourselves in, if your money is going to be with the platform for a while, you will find yourself in trouble because sometimes fuel prices are even increased and before you know, you are hot. So the drivers prefer to have money so that they can keep refueling and so that they can keep going on. But there's also an element of honesty and dishonesty here when sometimes some of the drivers don't want you to pay with a card because they owe and they don't want to be deducted, which we can discuss separately as we go along. Now, your report says one of the 10 platforms ensures democratic governance. So only one. Which platform is that?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
So on fair representation, 1 out of 10 assures freedom of association, and that is BlackRide. And the same BlackRide ensures democratic governance.
Yes. So democratic governance comes with the fair representation. If you
Okay. Hello, Joe.
We reward 1 point for the first part, and then the second part is an extra point. So fair representation, what availability or recognizing worker unions or association is 1 point. Then the second point is that there is fair democratic governance.
Okay, let's go to the next one. I want us to run through quickly so that the other members on the space can share their thoughts, especially those who are drivers. Fair management. 2 out of 10 platforms were able to show evidence that there is due process in place for decisions affecting workers. And 2 out of 10 platforms could evidence that there is equity in the management process. So if I can explain this quickly, only 2 out of the 10 platforms show that if there's even a dispute, people's views are taken before a decision is taken, right?
Yes. So that's Glovo and BlackRide, yes.
Still Glovo and BlackRide. Okay, let's go to fair contracts. 2 out of 10 platforms could evidence that the terms and conditions are clear and subject to Ghanaian law. And only 1 out of the 10 platforms could ensure that there are no unfair contract terms that prevent workers from seeking legal redress. Please take us through this. Okay. Bit to all of us.
Yeah, Kojo, I think that you lost both of us as speakers, so you need to add yourself back as a speaker.
I have. Okay. So I'm just waiting for him. Joseph, if you can hear us.
Also, before he comes, there was something I wanted to ask on the research, the earlier one. Did the drivers tell them why they will ask a rider where you are going after calling you? And because a lot of passengers, or in this instance, the correct diction is riders, have complained that over 90% of the time, when drivers call you and you tell them where they are going, they are either telling you cancel the trip from your end because they have a certain challenge, or go off trip so that you can pay them more, like they are charging you like taxi drivers. So when he comes, I want to know if they give reasons for that. Is it because of the charges they are giving
because it's also affecting we the riders. So that was something I wanted to ask based on that particular thing that they got from the drivers. Is it because the ride hailing apps are not giving them a competitive pricing enough? That is why you request for a ride, you get it, and the driver will call to ask you where you are going. When you tell them where you are going, it's either they tell you to cancel, because when they cancel, it affects their ratings, and they would rather tell you to cancel from your end based on a myriad of reasons, which sometimes are not tenable or truthful. Also, they are telling you, if you are seriously, you want to go to this particular place you are going and in need of this ride, cancel it, or when I come, let's go off trip so that I charge you. What is accounting for some of these things from the end of the drivers?
Okay, so I'm trying to. Austin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kojo.
I'm trying to get Joe back. I've re-added him as a speaker, but I think he has a problem with his network. So once he joins, we'll let him react to it. But I think last year I interviewed some riders in the studio at City, and some of them gave me reasons why sometimes they would reject certain trips. That sometimes the algorithm will not give them fair fares, right? So you are going so far in so much traffic, and if they calculate, if they ask you and you tell them and they calculate, they realize that, Charlie, if they take you, they won't get the right return on investment, so they won't go. There are other instances where the areas they are taking you, they don't feel safe to go to. For example, in the evenings, if you want to go to parts of Teshi, some of the riders will not take you. If you want to go to parts of Amrahia and parts of even Ashaiman, some of the riders will not take you because there are reports of attacks on drivers, theft, and sometimes carjacking in some of these areas. So some of the drivers have their reasons, and basically the reasons border on return on investment. If I'm going to pick you up and take you to this particular area, am I going to get my money back? Sometimes you drop somebody in a certain area and you won't get a rider back to where you are going to. So it means you will drop the person and you burn fuel back. So they do all these calculations and they'd rather pick you on as a regular taxi so they can negotiate and get proper return on investment, as in the movement. So Joseph is back. I don't know, Joseph, if you heard Austin's question and if you have any insights to share on that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, so I switched to another device. Please, if you could ask again, I beg you.
Okay.
Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, Joseph, I was asking about you talking to these drivers and the issue surrounding why they would call a rider and ask where they are going. I know it has to do with their end not having, because you are saying that just 1 out of 10 ride hailing apps will tell the driver after they have been given a trip that this is where you are going, but others do not give. But the riders or passengers have been complaining that over 90% of the time, when drivers call you and you tell them where you are going, they either tell you to cancel the trip on your end, giving some untenable reasons which are sometimes not truthful, or they tell you that I'm coming. But if you genuinely are in a rush to go where you are going and need this ride, when I get there, I'll cancel the trip. We will go off trip. And if you are to pay 10 cedis according to the app, I will charge you like how taxi drivers are charging. What has accounted for that? I don't know if that came up in your conversation with these drivers.
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. So you would bear with me that, let's say I am at La Paz. I book a ride that is coming from Achimota overhead. The trip from Achimota overhead to pick you from La Paz is unpaid for. It's at the driver's cost. So, and that is fuel. That is wear and tear on the vehicle. It is time. The algorithm for calculating the fare increase time times the time spent multiplied by the destination or the number of kilometers over the trip. If the person drives 1 kilometer, or let's say 30 minutes, 15 minutes, you come and pick a rider from the pickup point to their destination. That pickup trip is unpaid for by its cost. So when they call, they are finding out where you are. They are calculating the fuel they are going to spend from where they are trying to pick you. And then they are finding out how long the trip you are going to make is. Sometimes somebody will wait or would like to wait for 30 minutes to make a 15-minute trip. They think it is not worth it. So he won't come. Genuinely, he will ask you to cancel the trip because if he cancels, he will be penalized. If the rider cancels the trip within 5 minutes, it is free. So if you cancel within the 5 minutes, it's like you are doing both yourself and the driver a favor to avoid platform charges. But if you, and I have done it before, I left the trip on because I said I won't cancel because he called me 10 minutes later and I said I won't cancel. He left the request on to the next day, 24 hours. The next day I wanted a trip. So, and I couldn't cancel. I still didn't want to cancel because he had left it on. So I uninstalled the app and reinstalled before I could book another trip. So they are also guarding their revenue, and that is where it can sometimes get. I hope your question is
Yeah,
answered.
but looking at the contracts these ride-hailing apps have with these drivers, is that not going against the contract they have? Anything in the, because you have talked about the contract, so it means that you would be privy to it. Is that not going against it? Because what about
It
the times that is a short distance, but because of unavailability of drivers, they have had to multiply the real cost by 1.5. That is also sometimes going for the drivers and against the passengers. What we call a surge. So
yes.
if it is if so, I'm just asking, is it going against the contract they have signed? Is there anything in their contract that this particular thing goes against?
Okay. So yes, there's something in the contract that this thing violates. However, if we want to go by the contract, you are saying that the guy is an independent contractor. This is how they are classified. Independent contractor. Some platforms call them partners, driver partners. Some of them call them collaborators. These three words suggest having a relationship that is mutual, that is mostly symbiotic. Now, the guy is telling you that let's take the fuel prices over this year alone. Fuel prices have increased. You are still charging a base fare of let's say 2 cities 50 pesos. But and then out of the 2 cities 50 pesos, you will take your 20% commission. It doesn't matter whether the guy will buy fuel now, which whose prices have gone up maybe 30%. It doesn't matter to you. That is not partnership. So it forces the drivers to now look for underhanded means to survive. If he, and he will break the contract. He will break the contract because Uber is not on the field to come and enforce. The only thing you can do is to block him. If you block him, he will go on onto another platform. They use now all sorts of means to survive. That's why he will come and turn off the app and take an off trip so that he will avoid the 20% service charge to the platform, make that extra money so he can buy fuel.
Oh, okay, Joe. You see, in all this, right, it is how to
Yeah,
help the Ghanaian economy. If we don't take
exactly.
care and we try to encourage people who are not of integrity, it will affect us in our daily lives. Because then the
Yeah.
passenger or riders would also say, in certain circumstances, when ride-hailing apps put up a surge and a trip that normally I am paying 10 cedis, I am paying 30 because probably there is a game at the stadium. There is Ghana Music Awards at the Accra International Conference Center, or it's raining in Bantama and I want to go to Tech. That time, these drivers are earning something which is 3 times what they are supposed to earn. But if genuinely you are supposed to go for a trip and you say that it's not been increased, so you go contrary to the terms and conditions of your contract, it becomes problematic. It doesn't um, award people of integrity. It means that people can just do anything when it suits them. Uh, I don't know if I'm being clear on this because I'm also speaking from a rider point of view.
Yes, I understand you. So the price surge on the one hand benefits the platform. They are saying that well, when demand is higher than supply, prices should go up. That is normal economics. But in the same way, we don't know whether the surge price that is shown, well, you will pay that, but we don't know how much goes to the driver. Because yesterday we did a calculation. One of the platforms has told the drivers that if you come and wait at the pickup point, after 5 minutes, we are going to charge the customer or the rider 50 pesos per minute. That's you wait for the driver. Meanwhile, so we did a test. We ordered a ride on one of the platforms. We waited and waited for over an hour. When the receipts came for that trip, the wait cost was 0.05 pesos. So that's 5 pesos. So you may be seeing the price as high on one side, but what actually will be going to the driver is not what is reported.
No.
Okay.
See, hold on, Joseph. Get this clear. I'm asking these questions because I am in the industry. Get it clear this way. Let's say a trip from Bantama to Tech on a normal day per the distance and the pricing, which everybody has agreed to, is 10 cedis. If it starts raining or there is an event at KNUST, it affects the drivers that is supply and demand. These ride-hailing apps put a surge, so they will sometimes have 1.5 times the original price. So they tell us, we the riders, that going to Tech is 10 cedis, but at this particular moment, if you accept to go, you would pay 1.5 times that price. So you pay 15 cedis. Drivers are benefiting. We don't need to calculate because it is the same distance. It is the same fuel.
Austin, hold on. I'll let you land. Let me make a quick interjection before you go ahead.
Okay.
Drivers are benefiting, but not really benefiting. And this is it. When there's a surge, you use rain as an example. When it's raining, driving in the rain is a risky venture. So the surge and everything considers the risk, and all that is compounded and calculated in the cost. Usually when it's raining in this country and there's a surge, there's traffic. Whenever it rains, there's traffic. So the drivers are not going to use the same fuel or the same time. Usually there's some extended time. When there's a game at the stadium and drivers have to go and there's more demand, because there's a game and there's traffic towards the stadium, usually there will be traffic. So on a regular day, if you spend 10 minutes to get to the stadium, on a game day, you could spend even 30 minutes to get to the stadium. So the surge principle is not just a demand and supply thing, but it also takes into consideration the other factors that could increase costs on the driver, risk on the driver, and all parties involved to calculate this. So if you say straight away that when there's a surge, drivers benefit, let's not lose sight of the fact that if it's raining, there's risk in driving in rains in this country. If you make a mistake, you go and hit some pothole and break your lower arm or something, and you have to find money to fix it.
Yeah,
If
I
there's-
get that. I get that. But
so,
Kojo,
so that is important.
yeah. But let me tell you this for a fact. There are ride-hailing apps who intentionally put up a surge so drivers will gravitate towards them at a certain point or time T in a day. I am saying this, I'm saying this because I own one and I know what they do. I own one and sometimes they do that. But I am saying that the customer would not care about that. The customer cares about the impact. So if you have had an increase, driver would get money. Why is it that you are also telling us that I won't go at this time when your contract demands you to go? So if we allow people to go contrary, because then Kojo, what if all riders also take a decision that they will not take these apps? Their businesses will collapse. So in speaking for drivers for fair and all that, we should also tell them to go back. I'm just saying this on the terms of contract and this, that they should also go by their terms of contract. If you will not go, switch off your app. But if you accept to go and have to call a rider and tell them that this is the reason I pay more and that is not encouraging integrity. I don't know, maybe, but we can move on.
You have a point. When we open, I want others to take note of this, because I think it's something we need to discuss this
Yeah, it's
passionately.
something that people have been talking about. They'll call you and tell you I can't go pay more and all that. So
Now
we can move on with the report. When we open the floor for then
so let's just wrap up with the report quickly,
Yeah.
Joe. So
others can come.
let's use the next 2 minutes to just wrap up. So there are two other areas. So fair conditions and fair pay. Your report says that only 1 out of 10 platforms could provide sufficient evidence of different risk mitigating strategies for workers. No platform met the second point on safety net provision. So no platform has safety net provisions for workers. And then number 1, none of the 10 platforms could ensure that workers earn at least the minimum and local living wage after costs. I want to repeat that. None of the 10 platforms could ensure that workers earn at least the minimum and local living wage after costs. And the platforms are Glovo, Blackride, Bolt, Bolt Food, Phoenix, InDriver, Jumia Food, Swift Wheels, Uber, and Yango. Anyway, the minimum wage has just been increased today. There's an announcement that the tripartite committee has announced an increase in the minimum wage from 13 point something cedis to 14 point something cedis a day. So, Joe, you are telling us that based on the reports, the research you've done, none of the platforms guarantees the minimum wage and the living wage.
Yes, that's right. Even at the 13 point, if you take the driver takes out cost of maintenance, the cost of data, cost of paying the car owner, all those costs. At the end of the week, paying service commission to the platform. At the end of that week, the driver is not making any a day. Not to talk of
Joe, your line is misbehaving again, so position yourself well, because this is a very important part of the conversation. So you're saying that at the end of the week, if a driver takes out fuel costs, takes out what they have to pay if they are a work and pay person, takes out platform commission, data and core costs, maintenance costs, and miscellaneous, they will not be able to earn the minimum wage of 13 point something Ghana cedis a day.
A day, yes. So they don't earn that across all the platforms. None of them.
How did you arrive at this?
Okay, so if you look, I saw that you have shared once a calculation on your handle from our presentation. We did. I don't have the calculation with me now, but let me grab. Let me see. So we use some estimates. Okay, the estimate we are estimating about 20 cedis per trip, for instance. 20 cedis per trip. Let's say the driver makes 10 trips a day on the average. Based on those, please let me just fetch this. All right. So based on those number of trips, you have a total, and from those deductions, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, because I switched the right.
Yes. Let me help you. Let me help you. So I have the sheet. So a driver's daily earnings is 350 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And expenditure items, the fuel cost a day, average is 160.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a work and pay car, they are paying 450 cedis a week. So it means their daily to the car owner is 75.
Yeah.
The platform commission on the 350 cedis is 25%, which comes to 87.5 cedis. Data and car cost is 10 cedis. And your maintenance costs, this is where I have a problem. Is this maintenance cost per week or per day? Because maintenance cost here is 80 cedis, and my assumption is per day. And I'm not sure any vehicle spends 80 cedis per day on maintenance. So if it's 80 cedis per week, then we are going to divide this by, say, 6 and put 10 cedis there. Right.
You can go to the shop. You can go to the shop and spend on one day 1,500 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
Exactly. So the amount is even conservative. So
I'm not sure on a regular drivers pay 80 Ghana cedis a day on maintenance.
No, we are saying that on the average, if the driver can go to the 80 cedis, you can pay 80 cedis to change your oil, for instance, at the end of maybe a month or 2 months. So some of them will do. So we are saying that you put this amount down to spend at the end of the month, for instance, 80 cedis for the week times 4 weeks, 140 Ghana cedis, for instance. 140 Ghana cedis, you can spend it in the month alone.
Okay. So this brings us to a total expenditure per day of 462.5 cedis. And you're saying drivers' daily earnings is 350 cedis. So under the current fuel regime and prevailing factors, most drivers are running at a loss each day. That's the analysis you've made.
Yes.
Wow. So my final question for you is that
if you take the maintenance cost out, take out the maintenance cost, it will be running at a lot of at least 40 Ghana cedis.
Yes. So my final question for you is that what's the way forward based on where you sit?
No, Kojo, on that particular one, can I ask a question on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Isn't it based on how many trips you can make? Doesn't it differ from driver to driver? Because if you take a decision that you would work for 5 hours, and within that 5-hour period, you are getting, let's say, trips that within an hour, you get 8 trips. You make this much, and you go to sleep, you end. Would that not affect how much you are making in a pari passu with the daily minimum wage, comparative also to another person who decides to work, let's say, 8 hours? For instance, let's say a normal working person is 8 hours. Will your sales not be affected based on how you or number of hours you decide to work?
It's good, but it's still viable, and it's still at the mercy of
riders requesting your service. That's why we are forced to use averages, an average number of trips, because there are some people, when it comes to Gemba, a vehicle can park there from maybe 12 o'clock when it comes to park till 5 p.m., waiting for students to close to go home before they book a trip. They are on the park. It can be parked there for 5.
So if that happens, that statistics becomes problematic, because you cannot be measuring them by daily minimum wage, because they might have taken that decision. That's all I'm saying. You see, if you have taken a decision, you shouldn't be measured by minimum wage, daily minimum wage. Daily minimum wage should be measured by someone who has agreed to work for 8-hour period, that we can measure it. But if you decide that you go and park somewhere, if you decide that you cancel trips, if you decide that you work just 3 hours out of 8 normal hours, you shouldn't be talking about daily minimum wage when you calculate everything. I just wanted to draw our attention to that, if that can also affect it.
Yeah, so that I'm saying is one side. The people parked there I'm talking about, they are not off net. They are waiting for trips which haven't come yet. And that's one side. The other side is that when these platforms started, they were doing sharing economy. You are renting out extra seats on your car you don't need. So let's say I'm going to Tema. I'm alone in the car. It's like you're doing paid carpooling. But now Uber is saying that, okay, there's somebody going to Kaswa. I say I'm at La Paz and I would like to go to Achimota, but there's somebody going to Kaswa. You are the closest vehicle. So go and pick the person and take him to Kaswa. That is what is happening now. And people are not just renting their seats. People are now buying vehicles, giving out to drivers to take trips when they come, irrespective of where they want to go. And so you are calling them as independent contractor. If you bring a handyman to come and fix something in your house, and he charges an amount. If you negotiate or you bargain, and the person doesn't want the amount you are proposing, the person can easily walk away. You cannot punish the person for not fixing your tap because he says he will take 50 instead of 30 you want to give him. No, the person walks away. So if you are saying that the people are independent contractors, treat them as such. Don't block him if he says he won't go. But you block him and say that he should have gone for the trip. If you want to exert that level of control, then you are now running an employer-employee relationship. Treat the guy as an employee. Ensure that at the end of the month or at the end of every day, he earns the minimum wage. That's why we're also forcing pulling that side. You want to exert controls, but you don't want to exercise, make him exercise the privileges that comes with people who are under that kind of control.
Yeah, but Joe, you see, when we say minimum wage, right? Let's say Multimedia has agreed, Love FM has agreed that, or Kojo group of companies says, Austin, let's say minimum wage is 10 cedis. I want to use 10 cedis so that we can make better calculations. If you use a 13 and 14 point something, it distorts the calculation. Kojo group of companies says minimum wage is 10 cedis. It means, Austin, if I come and work for him, he will pay me 10 cedis. He has not erred. He has not committed a crime. So at the end of the month, is 30 cedis or about 300 cedis he would pay me. The 8 hours I would be working for him, or the time he has given me to work for him, is, per my contract, is 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., which would be a 9-hour, and let's say I have a 1-hour break unpaid, so 8 hours. You see, if you decide that at 1 p.m. you will go home and sleep, you don't expect to earn minimum wage. So I'm saying that if a driver decides that he has started work, he starts at 9 a.m., he goes home to sleep. If you do research and that driver tells you that, after doing my calculation, I don't earn a minimum wage, it's because you took a decision that after 2 hours you are going to sleep and not working. So you don't expect to earn minimum wage. That is all I wanted.
You are right. But those kind of drivers you are referring to, they are rare. That somebody will
Okay,
work
so
for.
it brings the thing that these drivers that who are not earning the minimum wage, do you have data on how many hours they are working, how much they are
Yes,
earning from these trips and all that?
yes.
So,
We are
so, so,
able to
um,
ask those.
guys, can I step in here?
Okay.
Can I step in here? So, on the minimum wage conversation, I think it's average, right? So, for example, even if a driver drives only 1 hour or 2 hours a day, the earnings they get, if you are to compound it and assume and spread it over, say, a regular 8 hour day, would they make enough to be more than the minimum wage and provide a living wage? I think that's the thing. So the average earning per hour on any of these ride-hailing platforms, if you compound it and assume that the driver was working for the whole day, 8 hours, would they be making enough to cover the minimum wage? I think that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
assumption,
that's a better.
right?
So if they are not, then it means if they are working 8 hours, they are not making 13 cities. It means they are
If
not
you are working
earning
one
more than
hour,
2 cities an hour. Wow, that's
yes,
dangerous.
yes. So and I think that's the
Wow.
conclusion that the report has established, that if you work your ass out, you are not going to earn the minimum wage or a living wage on
Yeah.
all these platforms. And I think that brings us to a very good point where we engage other people. So, Joseph, just hang on. We've cannibalized this conversation for far too long. And I know there are other people here who are drivers, who are car owners, who have had experiences with these platforms and the gig economy, and who want to share their thoughts. So, Austin, I'll leave you to moderate the rest and get other people to also speak to us and air their views.
Okay, thank you. So, those who have requested for the mic, I'll give you the opportunity. Anything you want to say, anything you would want to also ask Joseph, I'll give you the opportunity. So I'll be calling your names, and you should make it snappy between a minute and a two. You are tweeting at KM Techi. Good evening, sir, Junior. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good evening. So I wanted to buttress the point you were making earlier about the surge. So I have one typical example. A trip from, let's say, Westland to Adenta on an average will cost like the maximum, let's say 25 cities. But on one particular day, on Monday, early in the morning, it wasn't raining, nothing. The trip was 71 cities. And the nearest car was like 5 minutes away from me. But it was 71 cities. But after some few minutes, it got back to 20 something cities. So at times there is this kind of surge that you can't really understand the reason behind it. And my second point is about why some of the drivers ask passengers where they are going. So I encountered this same thing, and this was the answer the driver gave me. He said some of these apps give them they give them bonuses for the amount of trips they can complete in a day. So let's say the app will tell them, if you're able to complete 25 trips in a day, we will give you this bonus or this amount. So they prefer then to complete short trips to meet the total number of trips required by the apps instead of going long trips, which they think does not benefit them in the first place. So instead of accepting a trip from, let's say, Westland to Tema, he would prefer Westland to Medina. That's one trip, and get another one so that he will quickly meet up with the number of trips required to be able to get the bonus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is tweeting under Kwesi Sakwa. Kwesi Sakwa, good evening. I hope you are fine. Let's hear you, sir. Hello, Kwesi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you now. You can speak. And before Kwesi comes, anybody would also want to request for the mic, ask Joseph any question about their research, anything you'd want to say about ride hailing app, because it's shocking that they are not making more than 2 CDs an hour. Anything you want to say, you can request for the mic and we'll let you speak. Kwesi, good evening. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, see, we, the ride-hailing app drivers, in fact, we are working as slaves. I'm telling you, many times what we earn per day cannot even describe as a hand to mouth. You see, we buy our own fuel, we buy our own data, we take care of our airtime, maintenance, then sales, service fee. And you remember the ride-hailing apps, they charge their commission on the gross of each earning from each trip. So I hear some of your speakers saying that at times the saving distance, the fare may increase astronomically, so we make a lot. That speaker should remember that whatever we earn, the ride-hailing app charge their percentage sales fee on it. So, for instance, distance that ordinary would amount to say 10 cities, but because of search, it has increased to maybe 30 cities. The 30 cities, the 20 cities is not going to come into ours because the ride-hailing apps are going to charge their service fee on the 30 cities. You get it? And the same 30 cities, they are going to buy fuel because remember, it will also even happen that as of the time that request came, you are not even close to the pickup point of the rider. You are coming away. Uber, for instance, there are many times you have to drive as long as 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers to pick a rider. And there are some places you even go and you
Hello. Hello.
I think we've lost him.
Yeah, we've lost him, but I'll get back to him. Zachariah, you are our next speaker. Zachariah, good evening, sir. I hope you are fine. Let's hear you.
Well, awesome. Good evening. I'm very well.
you have to drive through traffic. So
Zachariah,
Austin, I
let's hear
think
you.
we should mute Kwesi.
Yeah, I've
So
taken
that
him
we-
off as speaker because
So
he
should I
would come
continue?
back and I'll accept him. So, Zachariah, let's hear you.
a pickup and that
I think it's still talking.
I don't know why, but I've taken him off. Let's hear you, Zachariah. Speak.
Okay, Austin. Well, I have some unpleasant experiences with some of these ride-hailing drivers, online drivers. The recent one is last week Saturday. I got to Accra. I think somewhere around 10 p.m. So I got down at St. John's. I was in the company of 2 other people. We were heading to the airport. So the Uber driver, it took him like 7 minutes to get there. So when I get there, I told him that, I have 2 luggages. And even if the luggage were just normal luggages, and then even if
Zachariah, I'm sorry. Are you using Uber as a generic term for ride hailing, or it was Uber?
that one was Uber because both was very busy. There was no way I could have gotten it because
Okay, go
around
on.
St. John's at that time. So I'm specific with Uber. Yeah, so the driver got there and he was like, if he's to pick those two luggages, he has to charge extra 5 cedis. And then I said, okay, no problem, because he was drizzling. And then he opened the boot, and then all of a sudden, I don't know whether he got bored or the 5 cedis was too. Maybe he wanted a reason to not to even embark on the trip in the first place. So he opened and was like, he can't even take it. So the person I was with, it looks like the guy is tired. That's why he didn't want to. So I was wondering, these are normal luggages, not that big. In any case, you could have still contained them, and then he sped off. He didn't even have to tell us anything. He just sat in his car and sped off. One thing that I've also noticed is that I used to, I still do, or I still do, I do travel at night a lot, especially when I'm traveling to Accra. There was a day, maybe Kojo, you are conversant with Kumasi. I stay at Ofurukrum around Opoku Transport, Opoku Nyama Avenue. Yeah, very not too far from the Aluga Market. So there was a day at that night, I think it was boat rather. So the driver, when I requested for the ride, I think the ride was somewhere around, is it 10 or 12 cities? So the driver called me, where am I heading to? I say VIP station. And he was like, he's somewhere around Asukwa, not too far. But to quote what he said, when say, Adia Sassin, I am near charge. When Sadia Santino, I was say a charge. So I asked him, now where you saying? He was like, you take 30 cities. And I'm catching. So I was like, oh, mean to me, would you enjoy? And then I ended the call. He called back asking Mintua 20. Because of what he did initially, I told him 20 gram into the enjoy. So at that time I was on the Uber app, and then I realized someone was completing a trip nearby. So he came, I think the fare was 10 cities. When we go to VIP, I gave him 20 cities. And he was quite an old man. Some late 50s, maybe 60s. And I gave him some of them. When we request the ride is in the evening, they will ask you where you are going. When you tell them, they will tell you that because it is late, what they will do is that they will charge you. And I think that one is too unfair, and it's some sort of dishonesty on part of online drivers. And I think it's very, very unpleasant experience that I have. So that's what I.
But Zachariah, if you listen carefully to the researchers, as Joseph was reiterating it, didn't their conversation with the drivers also prove that these drivers are saying we are independent contractors, we are this, we are that, but you don't allow us to do things that would also benefit us. So it means that they also have a new reason.
Yeah, they have genuine reason, because there are instances. I know two people personally who are online drivers, and sometimes they do share the experiences, because one was like, oh no, the on town so easy. I said that was even, I think, 2-3 years ago. I was like, on town so easy the other day. I am on town so easy ni kakra. I say easy ni cry by a favor. But with the recent increases in fuel prices, I don't remember the last time I was in an Uber and the AC was on. I don't even complain about it, because when I drive myself, I don't even on the AC. I cannot afford to be on in the AC anywhere I go when I'm driving. But the issue is that, in as much as they also need, because fuel is increasing, maintaining a car is not easy. I drive myself at times. Data is increasingly expensive. They buy their airtime to do the calls. But when something is agreed on, because both the passenger and the driver seems to come into agreement with what the app is to be provided. So when you have all these issues to be able to break even, I think your concern should be channeled to the app, the service providers, not the customers, because it inconveniences us. Because sometimes too, I tend to agree with them, especially when the person is going for a long trip, because of their safety. We've all heard stories of online drivers losing their lives. Some have been robbed their vehicles, and then some of them even, there was a teacher someone, I think a headmaster of a school, who was a part-time Uber driver and lost his life somewhere, I think around Fiyase to Jate Pramsuru. Their concerns are genuine. You understand? There was a day I ordered a Uber. I was going to from same Oforikrom, I was going to Emina, somewhere behind the hospital. So he told me that he was late. There's no way he could have, and I understood him perfectly. So at that time, there's a taxi driver that usually works at night in our area. So I saw him brought a woman who is a food vendor. She usually come home very late. So he was the one who to the rescue, because when they go to some of these developing areas, it's possible any other thing could have happened to them. So in that case, I kind of agree with him because of his own safety. But what sometimes the extent that they want to go and charge us extra more at the expense of what you're supposed to pay that has been provided. That is what I think is so unfair. If they have genuine concerns, I remember there was a time that they had to demonstrate for some few days in Accra so that things will be able to work in their favor, so that they will also be able to break even, especially if the car you are using is not your car. The amount of money that you have to give to the owner every week, and all your time that we spend driving, some of them work 12, 14, 16 hours, and maintaining a vehicle it doesn't come easy. So I think they have genuine concerns, but they should know it, the appropriate courtiers, they should be channeling those concerns, not
Okay.
always trying to charge us more.
Thank you very much. I even think that in in solving the problem of security, increasing fares will not solve it. We should find a better way of solving security problems instead of the price increases. That is genuinely my, because if you take 100 cities and go somewhere, if people will attack you, they will attack you. Which one is more important? Let's solve the issue of security. Can we have passengers being tracked, their numbers and everything? I know with time when same registration and all that come, we would reduce it by a huge percentage. So thank you very much, Zachariah. Our next speaker is tweeting at the president. I don't know if you are imitating the president. Elon Musk can suspend your account, but you are just the president. The president, good evening,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Hope you are fine. Let's hear you.
Good evening. I'm very, very fine. I'm very, very fine. Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I would like to take it up even from the last point you made concerning security. You know, I've been driving this online for some time now, and one major problem I have when it comes to security is got to do with why the app companies demands that the driver partner in registering for the app is required to upload their pictures, upload their driver's license onto the system, such that in case there is any security breach against a rider and the rider contacts the app, it is easy for the app to be able to give the details of the driver to the investigating agencies, and they can easily reach the driver, and wherever they are, probably they can arrest the driver and deal with the driver. But when it comes to the rider registering on the app, you will not see the requirement of the rider being asked to upload their picture. Sometimes you have this issue, especially if you drive on Sundays and probably church has closed, you're going to pick a rider. Some of these ride-hailing apps, you even find them not even giving you the name of the rider. And I've come across these incidents several times. You go, a rider, someone requests a ride, maybe in a particular church. You drive there, and you know that at that particular time, church has closed. So there are a lot of requests coming from that church. You get there, and some of the riders do not pay attention to the car numbers. The person will just jump into your car. And then if you are not careful, me most of the time, if what I do is, if I know your name, I'll first ask you, oh, are you Mr. So and so or Miss So and so? If you confirm, then I drive. Sometimes you do not know the name. The person sits in the car and then you drive off. Now, in terms of security, when something happens on the trip, you, the driver, do not know. You get to the place, you do not have any details of the rider. The only detail you have of the rider is their phone number and sometimes their names. And sometimes you're going to pick a rider, and the rider's name is Trouble. They can put their aliases there any kind of alias the rider wants, they put in there. So in case something happens, if you want to reach that rider, you are unable to reach that rider because the person has put their alias there. Sometimes the phone numbers they even use are phone numbers that do not even belong to them. So security wise, you realize that everything the app companies do are in favor of the riders as against the drivers.
Okay,
That
Mr.
is one.
President, I think Joseph
Yes.
has something to say, but before that, you see,
Mm.
you should realize that the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics are different when it comes because of the registration of SIM cards that we don't have. That is the
Mm-hmm.
major problem because I'm in London currently, and the
Yeah.
reason in London you can use and you can buy a SIM card without even
Mm-hmm.
giving them your details, but the
Mm-hmm.
reason security on the end of the passenger is
The
secured is,
rider, yes.
you'd have to pay via your card, right?
Yes.
Don't give cash.
Yes.
And by your card, every detail we can get it. But when you
Yes.
introduce that in Ghana, we
Mm-hmm.
have not captured every Ghanaian or majority of Ghanaians through the card system. So people would
Mm-hmm.
want to pay by cash. And immediately you try to go by that, you lose a lot of the riders. So I think that the hailing apps have realized that, but this thing will be solved when we do the SIM registration, because everybody will have a unique person to a unique number. So you have to
Yes,
register with your number.
but let me not cut you. You see, where I'm coming from is SIM registration. Sometimes there are a lot of riders who request rides for third parties. My issue is that we are all using almost for you to be able to use this ride hailing apps, you need a smartphone. Phones have cameras. So even just the common picture of the rider would even solve half of the problem.
Yeah, but
Do you
I'm
understand
saying
what I'm
that
saying? So
how
if the
how would
person
the
is
ride hailing apps know that this is the identity of the person registered to this SIM, this request? Yeah, you can pick anybody's picture to register, do your registration. If you are a bad person.
no Uber, which is that's why among all the apps, I rate Uber number one. Why? Because we the drivers, sometimes you go on Uber and before you go online, the app will tell you to take a selfie, and it has a face recognition feature. So if you take my Uber account and you put it on and asks you to take a selfie, and you take a selfie on my account, it will reject it because it will not recognize your face. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is just technology. What I'm saying is that if the apps want to do something to improve securities for their driver partners, they can easily do it. But what you realize that because it's a business, they are interested in having a lot of riders. If they introduce certain things, they feel that it will reduce the
Yeah, yeah.
number of people who sign on to that. So at the end of the day, it goes in seeking their interest. They do a lot of things against the driver. Sometimes there is an altercation between a driver and a rider. Before you realize your account is blocked, they will not even call you to even find out, oh, there was this incident. This rider has reported this incident on this particular day. What is your side of the story? All you realize is that your account is blocked. You call and they tell you because a rider reported you that you've done so and so and so and so, so your account is blocked for this number of days or this number of weeks. Sometimes it is permanently blocked. Do you understand? These are some of the disadvantages that the
Okay,
drivers go
we
through
get it.
in using
Joseph,
this.
you raised your hand. I don't know if there was something you wanted to say per your research. If you came across that from drivers, I don't know.
Yes.
Joseph,
Okay.
hello, Joseph. Well, if Joseph is not ready now, Mr. President, you can continue so that
Yes.
we pick
Yes.
others.
Yes.
And
Okay. And then secondly, to do with the earnings. You see, what the issue we are having when it comes to earnings is that you realize that for these past few months, prices of fuel has gone up multiple times, and immediately it goes up. In a few weeks, time you hear GPRTU, screaming for price increments, screaming for price increments. But these app companies are not able to also, increase prices to correspond with the increase in, the cost of running this business. Cost of spare parts are going, they've tripled these times. Fuel has tripled, more than quadrupled these times. You understand? But the ride hailing apps find it difficult to increase prices to correspond with the current market situations. Why? Because I feel one, it is because of competition. So if Uber goes ahead to increase their price, they are afraid that okay, riders will not will not request a ride on Uber, but they'll end up going to their competitor, how do I call it, apps. So they are also afraid to increase their prices so that they don't lose their customers. But what is actually happening is that at the end of the day, it is the driver who is at the losing end. Why? Because the service fee these app companies are charging is fixed over the period. Those charging 25% is 25%, whether price increase or not, is 25%. So let's look at it this way. Let's assume, let me use a simple calculation so that everybody will understand. Let's say in a day, I drive 100 cedis, I complete 100 cedis worth of trips. The ride-hailing company is taking 20% out of the 100 cedis. That is 20 cedis. I am supposed to pay my daily sales to my car owner. Let's say a daily sales of 40 cedis. That makes it, let's say, 60 cedis gone. Then I'll have to spend 20 cedis to buy fuel. That makes it 80 cedis. So the driver ends up earning 20 cedis at the end of the day. Now, if there is an increment in fuel, do you understand? And I end up spending, let's say, from the 20 cedis I initially used to buy fuel, I end up spending 22 cedis buying fuel. You realize that the following day I'll do the same 100 cedis. The app company is still going to take 20%, which is still going to be a constant 20 cedis. The car owner is going to take his constant 40 cedis. Now, when it comes to fuel, I will now have to go into my profit, which is the 20 cedis, my earnings for the day, which is the 20 cedis. I have to go into that 20 cedis and take out 2 cedis to add to the fuel money, which is what? Which is now 22 cedis. So instead of earning 20 cedis the following day, I'm now worse off earning 18 cedis. And that is what is happening consistently over this period. So you realize that now the drivers' earnings have all been eroded into fuel, but the app companies' earnings are constant. They are not facing those things. Their earnings are constant. The car owners are receiving their sales. They've not reduced the sales because they feel economic conditions.
Quick interjection here. Are you assuming that their running costs have also not gone up? Because we're all saying that the economic conditions have also resulted in our running costs going up. So if you say their earnings are constant, are you overlooking the fact that there are certain other operational costs that they are also having to deal with that have gone up?
Well, I'm not saying their running costs are not gone up, but the reality of this industry is that drivers driving on sales do not report all the faults on the vehicles for the car owner to repair. Most of the minor issues on the vehicles, most of the minor faults on the vehicles is mostly done repaired by the driver. Do you understand? Most of the time, the car owners take responsibility for the major repairs, maybe the oil changes and those things. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you realize that under normal circumstances, the car owner is supposed to take care of all the cost of running the vehicle. But because of, if you're going to give all the cost to the car owner, sometimes you end up parking your car because today you drive, you hear a noise in your ball joint, you need to take it to the mechanic to repair. That will come out from, it's something, just 30 minutes something. So you go there, you spend, the mechanic will look at it, you give the person 50 cedis. It will come out of the pocket of the driver. At the end of the day, you are not going to take it out of the sales of the car owner. Do you understand what I'm saying? So though the running cost of the business on the car owner will also be increasing, but the driver is suffering more because in addition to the extra he's putting into the maintenance of the vehicle, he is also coughing out more to buy fuel. Are you getting what I'm saying? I hope you understand where I'm coming from. So at the end of the day, over this period of time, you realize that the driver is rather ending up sacrificing more compared to that. When it comes to the app companies, I just want to find out, when it comes to the app companies, what exactly goes on there? They are taking their constant 25% or 20% out of the business. They are not involved in running in maintenance of the vehicles. They are not involved in when it comes to roadworthy, those things. They have nothing to do with that. Do you understand what I'm saying? But they are taking their constant 25%. But when it comes to increasing prices, drivers have to agitate and agitate and agitate over a period of time before even the increments that they put on. That is why most of the drivers will nowadays call you and ask you, where are you going? How much will you charge? I would like us to go off trip so that I'll take the amount that you were charged so that I will not pay the service fees. That is what is going on. But I believe that if these app companies will be proactive enough and come together, do you understand? So that when it comes to some of these economic pressures on people, they come together and sit down realistically, just like what is happening in the tripartite committee. Oh, this evening there has been a tripartite committee meeting. Minimum wages have been increased. These ride-hailing companies must come together. If I don't know if it is the government that is supposed to set up and bring these people, set up a regulation to regulate these apps. But because this industry is not regulated, everybody is just doing whatever they like. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, the drivers and sometimes the riders are the people who are the receiving end of some of these negatives that are going on in this industry. So I believe that there should be a form of regulation up there so that if some of these things happens, then at least these people can sit down and come up with some sort of at least minimum increment in fares that will cut across board so that nobody will be afraid that if I go ahead to increase my prices, I will end up losing riders because my competitors will keep their price at the minimum. And I also feel that we, the drivers, must also try as much as possible and come together. And if it is possible, it is a strong union we are going to form, just like the GPRTUs and the Protea and whatever it is. We also need to come out and form a strong union so that when it comes to some of this is championing the cause of drivers, we will have a voice. I hope you understand what I'm saying. We will have a voice that can use. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
Outlawed, please mute your mic. We will come to you, sir. Outlawed, please, we will come to you.
And Austin, it's 8:43. I think we should be wrapping
I
up
think I'll
around
end
9.
it here. Yes.
Okay.
So I think this is the list I'll say. I'll end it
Yes.
here.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is tweeting at JOKGH, Kofi Asare Odey. Kofi, good evening. I hope you are fine. Let's hear you, sir. Hello, Kofi. Kofi, good evening. We can hear you. Let's speak. Hello, Kofi. I don't know what is happening, but it seems we cannot hear Kofi. Kofi Asare, if you are listening to me, you are our next speaker. If you are unable to speak, then let me go and pick another speaker. But you can also request for the mic and share your thoughts on what we are discussing. It seems a lot of drivers are in the space and they are complaining about the challenges they are facing. Joe, if you did the research, I don't know if you are available now. If I can ask you a question based on what the president just spoke about. Joe, can you hear me? I don't think Joe can also hear me, but let me try Kofi for the last time.
And you can ask me the question. Maybe I'll have an answer for you.
I wanted to know, in the research they did, contracts between these drivers and the ride-hailing apps, are they formal contracts? And also, if there are, is it in there on what basis and what can necessitate an increment in fares? I don't know if they captured that in their report.
Oh, this one. When Joe comes, you answer.
Yeah, because that would inform the issues raised by the president, right? That is why I'm asking that question. Because if you don't, at least once there should be if you have a contract with them, as you are saying, it should be in there. What at what point and what circumstances can necessitate an increase? If it is arbitrary, then I think that it is problematic, because if first petrol prices have gone up and they think that they will have to keep prices low so that they satisfy their riders who will not leave them to competitors. How is that a fair contract? I think when we get Joe back, he should tell us. But Kofi, can you hear us? I don't know. We were having difficulty hearing you. Kofi Asare, you are tweeting Kofi Asare or Day. Let's hear you, sir. Am I the only one who cannot hear him? Because it seems he's unmuted himself and speaking, but I can't hear him. Am I the only one who can hear him?
I can't also hear him. I can't hear him.
Wow.
So let's wrap up. Joe, if you can hear us, Austin had a question for you. If you can answer, what goes into the contracts that these riders and these independent service providers sign with the platforms? And so if you have an answer for us, please give it to us, and then we'll just wrap up the conversation for today. Austin.
Okay. I don't know if Joe is currently available, but if he's not, I'll pick about a view from any of the people in the space. I was expecting more riders to also share their thoughts, so that next time there are a lot of drivers also in the space.
The riders are enjoying the surge. There's a surge now, so they are all taking advantage of it.
Yeah, because the surge. I also wanted to talk about it, because ride-hailing apps intentionally put a surge on to beat their competition, and I know this. But let's pick this speaker. I know this because that is what they do. I think that you are tweeting at Original Man 2. Original Man 2, good evening. Let's hear you, sir. Hello, FKTTW. Original Man 2. Good evening, sir. I hope you are fine. Let's hear your thoughts. I don't think he can hear us. I don't know the challenges, but people request for the mic and they can't hear us. But like I said, the person in charge of the research, he's Joseph. He has explained it. He's talked about some of the challenges the drivers have put across. And okay, let me pick Echo. Immediately I tried to speak. Then someone, Echo Spencer. Good evening, sir. I hope you are fine. Let's hear you. Hello, Echo Spencer. We have given you the opportunity. You can speak now.
Hello.
Original Man 2. Let's hear you. We asked you to speak. You did not. I don't know.
Yeah, hello.
Mohammed, let's hear you. Mohammed, let's hear you.
Yes.
Let's hear you,
Good evening, my brothers. I hope everybody's well.
we are all well, sir. Let's hear you.
I'm a driver, so I by chance, I was listening to the space and I decided to at least give him my 2 cents. I've been listening to my brother's son who saying about the ride-hailing apps. Honestly, the contract we sign on paper never favors us, and they have a certain structure. What they do, at least based on my perception, we are more like they start as we are partners, but we end up being more of like the structure. How they structure the thing is we end up being like slaves to them. So especially, is it okay if I can mention any of the companies or?
No problem if it's not my lining them and making unsubstantiated allegations.
So, for instance, like Bolt, for instance, when a rider requests a ride, and the person feels like, let's say you're about 10 minutes away, and you are driving to the location, and you're about maybe less than 500 meters, and the person feels like, I don't want to go again, or I change my mind.
when a rider cancels, there's no ramification for the rider whatsoever. You understand? But then it still goes even against you. They have what they call rider score. So after when you get to about 55, they will ask you to come for coaching, even when the rider cancels. So it's sort of like you are when the request comes, you have no option than to either accept. You understand? Or if you decline, maybe the bonus that they've given you because to do for the day, you understand, you will end up losing that bonus. I hope
But Mohammed,
yeah.
I thought that when you request
Mhm.
and the drive, you don't cancel within some minutes.
That is for
You'd pay.
That is for Uber, but Uber has even cancelled that reception because they felt Bolt was doing it because they felt the drivers like Bolt have sort of cornered us in a situation where you are obliged to take the request no matter where the person is going. It doesn't matter. You understand? Because I can give you instances. I was attacked around Teshi some time ago. I think around last year or a year and a half ago. And I realized that there are hot points now in certain areas now. When it's late and you request, I won't go. Choco, Kolegono, Teshi, now part of Labadi. They all realized that we are like targets. So the last time I got a request, it was around the Choco close to the beach down there. So I called the person, and when you call, there are certain security measures are put in place. I'll ask you, and I'll try to at least interrogate you where you're going, where you are, how many people are you like, how many people are going, and I realized that the person was a bit evasive. So I cancelled. Then the request came to me again. Then I cancelled again, and the request came to me. The third time the request came, then I was blocked. When I wrote to them that this is what was happening, but then I didn't feel safe because I didn't feel that the request was quite okay for me. They blocked me. Hello?
So this means there are no repercussions for rider
No.
cancellations.
And the funny thing is, when the painful thing is when you cancel, it goes against you, the driver. When the rider still cancels, and let's say he decides not to go, it still affects you.
Chalon said, you are too full. Muntu uko ye rider cancellation fee. Ubi abefa true and also come
No problem per se.
home.
But can get problem per se. But my main issue is if the rider decides not to go and cancels, why should it affect me? At least if I do it, it should go on my side. But if the rider does it, why should it affect
Yeah, I
me?
think that is
And
problematic.
second occasion, and the
A
thing is,
driver should not be
and
downgraded because a rider cancels.
and the thing also is, when the rider cancels, he doesn't have any. He can cancel, request, get a different car, cancel, request, get a different car, and cancel. And the other issue is, you see, they have two systems. They have a system. You see, they charge the fare is being charged based on the base fare, the kilometer, and then minutes. On paper, it will show that this is how much you're charging. The base fare, maybe I've forgotten. I don't know the new figures right now. But I know that they have the base fare. They'll tell you this. Like, let's say, maybe, I'm just giving an estimation. Maybe you get the ride from Accra Mall to Tema, which is about, let's say, 30 kilometers, and you're doing about maybe 1 hour. So what they do is they calculate based on that. If let's say the every kilometer is 150 pesos, so they multiply that by the 30 kilometers, then they'll get that figure, put it down. If you did 1 hour, so 60 minutes multiplied by the minutes, how much they charge, which is I think it's 50 pesos or so. Then they add the base fare. I think it's 2 CD 50 or 2 CD something. So I know the calculation. You realize that if you end up like when you get and end the trip, and then you do your own calculation, you realize that they have a certain fare they've given the person. So when you write to them that based on your figures that you gave that this is how much you're charging, how did you get to this figure? They will never ever respond to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten a gist of what Mohammed puts across. Then you see it fits into the research that the group made, Fair Work Ghana, that some of these contracts you are going into and all that, I don't know. Can the Labor Relations Ministry or Shraj come in? We should be having solutions.
That is what we are pushing. That is what we are pushing for. So we the drivers have also trying to organize ourselves. That is why we have a secretariat, which is the NASOT. So that is what we are trying to push forward, to have a secretariat. Then now what we, instead of we are always agitating that increase the price or anything, we will also be part of the table in terms of any now. When there's supposed to be a meeting, we also have a representative there that will speak for us.
I think the best way and the best advice I'll give is you should petition Parliament, because this particular Parliament, I think, uh, is one that we might not have again. So this is the time you need to strike when the iron is hot. Petition Parliament. Your group should petition Parliament. I think that Parliament is the body in charge of enacting laws.
I've not been able to drive,
and they are our representatives.
The painful thing is I've not been able to drive for about 3 weeks because I don't even know how to start, how to even end it. Because I use a VIT, which is a 1.3, sorry. And I'm calculating if I buy 300 cedis worth of fuel. Normally, on average, before, if I buy maybe 200, if by chance I'm lucky during the week, I can do about 450. So if I take out the 25%, then I can take all those incentives. Then I know that, or maybe I can be able to get something small to take home. But now, if I buy 300 cedis, I know there's no way I can even do 600 cedis in a day. The best I can do is maybe 450 or 500. So if you take out the 300, you take out the 25%. So that means you worked from morning 8 to maybe in the night around 10 o'clock, and you are getting home with 70 cedis. So how? It doesn't even cover your cost.
Okay, we have just 2 minutes to go. I think that the way forward, I would add another person. Is it okay? James, you are our last speaker. Do it in a minute so that we can end at 9. James, I don't know why people wait till we are about closing and they request, but it's fair we let them speak. James,
But James, let's talk to Joe and then wrap up.
Yeah, I don't know. James, let's hear you say, but be quick with it. Hello, James.
Yeah, Austin. So,
yeah, let's hear you.
The previous speaker. I'm currently driving. I started at 7. It's 9. I'm still driving because I just want to end that 40 Ghana cedis bonus. So I'm still driving. That's how long have I've been driving? 14 hours. Like I've been online. I've not gone offline. Even whilst I'm on break eating, I'm still online. So it's not an easy thing doing right now. Like he said, like you earn 70 cedis. Currently, I have only 60 cedis. I've bought fuel 300 cedis already. I've spent close to 100. So I'm sure by 10 that I've targeted to close, I'll be spending 400 cedis for. I will have 60 cedis for me and the car. And currently, I spent close to 300 cedis for oil change. And I buy oil and oil filter. So, and see, right now I'm at Dome Pillar 2. I was at Atomic Runabout. I set a destination to East Legon where I stay. I got a request at Kwabenya. I go pick up the person. The person is coming to Auntie Mary, Dome Pillar 2. So it's like, I'm looking for a request. So if I should cancel right now, passenger is going to get pissed. Why are drivers canceling? Why don't you want to go? But this is a situation whereby the app gives me an option to set a destination, but it didn't take me towards the destination. It rather brought me back to like Dome Pillar 2. So when drivers call you to ask, "Oh, where are you going to?" It's not because the driver want to be annoying, but the app doesn't favor the driver. So there are a lot of things on the app that doesn't favor us. Currently, like if I should turn on, I can get a trip to, let's say, Ablekuma, Joma. I go to Joma. Who's coming back to Accra, like from Joma? So I'll be in Joma. And that's what was happening to me last year when I was driving, when I started. I'll end up at Ablekuma. I'll end up at some places around 3 p.m. when there's surge. And then I get notification, hey, Accra is hot, come online. and I'm stuck in some hinterland somewhere. And I spoke to friends, and they advised me that, hey, don't do that. Don't go anywhere. Don't run a charity organization here. Call, ask where they are going to. If it's going to a place that you know you're not going to get a trip back to town, don't bother yourself. So these are some of the things in the past. Like my friend told me that in the past, boats will compensate you if you use a bad road. And when you report that, oh, a road was bad, they'll compensate you. But now they don't do that anymore. So a lot of things that we drivers go through, and it's really not easy. So the 60 cedis I have now, if I should get a 40 cedis bonus, that will cancel the commission I'll be paying. And I've worked for like I think for the 300 cedis that I've spent on my dashboard, I've earned 450. Both is going to take their commission out of the 450. I take another 300 for fuel. What's left? Like, really, Charlie? Yeah, bro. So you passengers, it's not easy for us. So bear with us. You guys take us today. Somebody took me to the road wasn't good. I told him I can't continue. He's like, it's just here. I said, no. Am I going to leave him? I'm like, I don't mind if you don't pay me, no problem. But if the car gets spoiled on the way, you drop off and leave. So why should I, go through a road? I just fixed my car last week. They removed the beam, fixed everything, paid. I spent 650 cedis last week, and then you want me to pass through a terrible road and then get spoiled again, and boat's not paying me. I'm going to pay for that myself. So what work are we doing currently? Like right now, Charlie? So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are just about ending. Joseph, you are in charge of the research. You've heard speakers, you've heard drivers, you've heard riders. What would you want to end with, so that I'll go to Kojo and I would end?
Okay, thank you very much. Pardon me, my devices are not being fair to me. I'd like to recognize Daniel A. Daniel A is my boss in the University of Oxford. I'd like him to
Hello,
end
Joseph.
for us. Yes. I'm saying that my boss is here, Daniel. You can see Daniel A.
We are
I'd like him
listening.
to that. End.
Okay, that's fine. So you want us to make Daniel a speaker for him to end?
Yes,
That's
please.
fine.
Yes, please.
Austin, I don't know whether you can find that. Okay, I found Daniel A. Is it Jiggy Figure? Platform Genius, yes. So I've invited him to speak. The way forward, Daniel, wrap up the conversation for us by giving us thoughts on the way forward. Well, I've invited Daniel, but he's not accepted to be a speaker. So,
okay. So the way forward on our side is that we will continue doing this research as a way of doing advocacy for the drivers. You heard the last speaker, Le Boss. You have listened, and he has given you the issue on the ground. If we don't highlight these things, everybody will take it for granted, and it will be as if everything is okay. We are also developing a policy brief to give to government so that government will recognize the need to regulate these platforms. Okay, Daniel says he's accepting. On the consumer side, we have what we call the Fair Work Pledge. So we go to fair.work, fair.work/pledge. The Fair Work Pledge is the consumer saying that you are going to use platforms that are fair. We recognize that the fair platforms like Glovo and BlackRide from our scoring may not have enough vehicles, but the more we attempt to switch to them, the more pressure we believe it will bring onto the other platforms that we rather prefer to use, so that they will treat their workers fairly. The more fairly they treat their workers, the better the workers will work in our interests, and we'll have better service. This is what I like to say. Thank you, Kojo. Dustin.
Thank you, Joe. So Daniel, if you are there and you want to say something, you can do that quickly before we wrap up. But Austin, I'm getting a lot of DMs and some people are also tweeting that this conversation should be repeated. For example, Seth says this conversation should be repeated. I have a lot to say. I drive online and I have people driving for me as well. So I want to ask you guys this. What time do you think it will be okay to have this conversation? Your lane period when a lot of the drivers are not driving. Can you share in your various groups and share with me when you think we can have a conversation when most of the drivers are available? We'll title the conversation Platform Workers Speak, the Way Forward. So this time it will be just you and your concerns. We can take the 5 areas that Fairway Ghana did the research on and then have you speak to each of the 5 areas and share your concerns. Maybe that will also inform further work by Fairway Ghana in pushing for policy makers and in pushing for the system to see to your needs. As a Ghanaian, I believe that when you create that equitable platform for every player in the economy to be treated fairly, consumers are the highest beneficiaries, because if drivers are treated fairly, if platforms are treated fairly, then each partner in the mix is happy and consumers benefit more. So I believe we should have this conversation again. So the platform people, my DM is open, Austin's DM is open. I know some of you have WhatsApp pages. Throw it to your members. We'll be ready to host a bigger conversation. Again, this time just you. From start to end, tell us your concerns in all the top 5 areas. We itemize them and you speak to them. And then we'll pick this feedback and share with the appropriate authorities so that we can build a better system and a better economy that meets our needs and that drives national development. Austin, do you have anything else to say?
Basically, that is what I wanted us to end with, because I've always said that when we have discussions both on social media and traditional media, what I look out for is what is the take home? What are we going to do to achieve success, or the problems we are talking about? How do we address them? So if we come and we just lament, it's not a good thing. But from what you have said, people would come, share their thoughts, their views, their challenges, what they think should be done. And if we are going to table it before authorities, I think it's the best way forward. So, but let's also keep in mind that it's World Cup season from Sunday. So we need to be careful when we schedule this space. Yeah. So what I would entreat them to do is, like I said, I know they have a lot of driver groups. They should put it in, and they tell us once we are able to agree with date with them, we would talk about it, having in mind that it's World Cup season as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Austin. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you very much, everyone. It was short notice to have this conversation, but you've all stayed on and given us insightful feedback, which will help us shape this economy. We'll have another conversation. If I had my own way, tomorrow, same time, we'll have another conversation. And this one will just be left to you, the drivers. If you guys agree, if I even get 10 people DM me to say that it's fine, let's have the same conversation tomorrow. And Austin is okay with it, tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Exactly.
We will have the conversation and have you drivers speak to all the 5 areas and give us your thoughts so that we can keep pushing for a better platform economy for all of us. So have a good night. Those of you who are sports fans, the Piers Morgan Cristiano Ronaldo interview, I think is airing or just finished airing. So if you want something to calm you down, you can go and watch that as well to calm you down. I wish you all the best. Let's meet tomorrow, 7 p.m. and have a conversation with drivers and car owners in this particular space. God bless you all. Enjoy the night.
God bless you too, Kojo and Austin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kojo. See you tomorrow evening.